Hi, I'm Elliot Gavin Keenan, and you're probably thinking one of two things about me. One, I look like an androgynous Muppet. Or two, I look like Harry Potter. And this would be a tried and true cognition because, in fact, when I was in high school, I was in this horrible one act play. It was a parody, it was a mashup, very untimely, of Harry Potter and Twilight. Two things, well, Twilight at least had sort of faded from the spotlight at this point. So it was a poor decision on the part of my school. Drama club was not well invested in. But I was cast in the lead role as Harry Potter. Surprise, surprise. In fact, one time, my cousin was scrolling Facebook, and her young son, who I guess is also my cousin, um, he sees a photo of me, and he says, "That's Harry Potter." And my cousin says, "No, no, no, that's your cousin." And my cousin, the little one, says, "My cousin's a wizard?" And I may not actually be a wizard, but according to some people, I'm the next best thing because I am a statistician. And I'm also a computational psychologist and a clinical psychologist and a developmental psychologist and maybe even a cognitive psychologist. I'm the everything bagel of psychology. But I actually always wanted to be a writer. And I mean, I am a writer. I've published books, I've published essays, in really good literary journals. But I decided this actually when I was 7 years old. 7 years old, had my whole life planned out. I had gone on vacation with a friend to Vermont, to this old cabin, and a train nearby, probably an Amtrak, would shoot by, and the whole house would rattle. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was up in this old rattling house, and I was writing a story, and I have no fucking idea what this story was about, but I know that elephants were involved. And I didn't know anything about elephants, so I'm not sure how that works, but that night, for some reason, I decided I was going to be a writer. That's it. I was going to be a writer. That's the rest of my life planned right there. But I had to get a day job. And that day job ended up being psychology. And it's my day job because I get to experience a lot of the beginning of each day. 12 a.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. That's the beginning of a day. Day job. There's a saying that any study you do on statisticians will have the methodology severely critiqued. And if you do a study on psychiatrists, they'll go fucking nuts. And that's because, like my psychiatrist says, everybody goes into the mental health profession for a reason. And you may think the reason is that they want to love and help people. But actually, generally the reason is that they are actually fucking insane. They're crazy. It's very, very common in this profession to find out that you're crazy. And I'm no exception. If you look in my file, you'll find almost every code the DSM has to offer. I think I've got one in at least every chapter, at some point in my life anyway. If we could test for mental illness like we test for STDs, my test would be coming up like positive, 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 positive. I've got fucking mental syphilis, which is actually a thing. You can have mental syphilis, and I don't have it. It's the one I don't have, but it's not in the DSM, so it doesn't count. In fact, my psychiatrist says I'm really getting my money's worth. She said that after the last budget meeting at the clinic that I'm in. And that is, in fact, why I went into psychology as well. So while I may not be a wizard, I do play one at D&D. And, it's really funny because I think about, my wizard character at D&D as if he was, like, casting his spells through R. Like, if he, is trying to cast Fireball, and it says, I'm sorry, it's going to take 52 years to iterate. Or it says, cannot converge, cannot cast Fireball. Why? Because you put a curly bracket on the wrong side of a parentheses. we can't do Fireball like this, or you just don't have the CPU. You know, you're on your laptop, you can't fucking cast Fireball on a fucking i7 with 2 cores, you know? Like, it's just not gonna happen. No, I'm not gonna do it. Fuck you. So, you know, it would be very inefficient to cast your Fireball through R, especially in combat. You'd be the worst ever. But at least you tried. And now, there are some people who don't even try. I read a lot of papers, and some of them are great, and some of them are bad. Here, let me show you a graph. And this is a graph from a real paper, and a very recent paper, in fact. I believe it is Livingston et al. And this graph from an actual paper about autism, and specifically it's about compensation in autistic people, because apparently we find it very hard to comprehend that some autistic people are different from other autistic people, and we are driven to know why that people are different from each other. Wow. But yeah, this is an actual paper, and if you're looking at this graph and you're thinking, what the fuck is deep compensation? I don't know. I read the paper and I don't fucking know. And unknown? Aren't you writing the paper? Aren't you supposed to be telling me? You're supposed to know. You can't just say, I don't know, and publish that shit. Like, that's worse than the Journal of Null Results. The one thing I take from this graph is that if you're autistic like me, you have 2 options. 1, go deep. 2, get high. That's it. Good night, folks.